What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Whether you're listening to this in true podcast form or following along live on social media, on our YouTube account. If you're not checking us out, by the way, on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball YouTube, implore you to do that. You can watch along live. You can give us some questions. We'll answer them throughout the show. But regardless of how you're listening to us or watching us, a lot to get to, Alex. This is perennially one of my favorite pods of the year because by the end of draft season, you just kind of feel like, all right, we're doing all these mocks, we're talking about things in hypotheticals, we're just talking about, well, I don't know how many games this guy's going to play. We got real NBA games to break down, and unfortunately, we have real NBA injuries already as well. Not a whole lot to say on this, but the two big ones, of course, being Luka Doncic, who's going to miss at least a week with a finger injury, also dealing with something with his leg, and then Anthony Edwards, who we found out earlier Monday. They're calling him week to week. Sounds like 2 weeks at the minimum for Edwards, which is a tough one because with Luka, you expect this, right? There are a handful of guys who you're just penciling in for 10, 15, maybe more absences. And Luka, unfortunately, is on that list. But one of the appealing things about drafting Anthony Edwards is he plays when he can, right? He's never a guy who's going to take a night off unless there's a true injury. What does this mean specifically for Minnesota? I think with the Lakers, it's fairly straightforward. I think Austin Reeves is just going to give you 51, 11, and 9 every night until LeBron and Luka are back. But a lot of intrigue for me with Minnesota because all of a sudden, it's like, I guess Dante DiVincenzo is kind of your second option. Maybe we see more McDaniels. We should see a lot more Terrence Shannon as well, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I think the Minnesota one is tough. I think it's going to mostly end up being a lot of committee usage increased by guys who are already rostered. Like, I think it's going to be a lot of Randall and DiVincenzo and Naz Reid and guys like that. And you mentioned Terrence Shannon, who I think will step up, although only played, I think, 10 minutes in this previous game.
Yeah.
And then they have Clark, who I think is pretty good. I mean, I really like him, but offensively still kind of hit or miss. And then in theory, it's like, okay, well, there should be more for Bones Highland or Rob Dillingham. Dillingham wasn't in the rotation, and then he broke his nose. So this is a very, I think, difficult injury to parse out for fantasy.
That's where I wanted to go next. And it's tough because Bones Highland looks like Rob Dillingham. So like when I'm watching the Wolves, I'm like, oh, there's Dillingham. Wait, what? No, it's Bones Highland. What is going on here? Look, I know we were not really drafting Rob Dillingham in most leagues this season, maybe still a dynasty consideration. Not good that he's not in the rotation for a team that could use him, right? And like Bones Highland felt like he might have been out of the NBA a year ago, and they're prioritizing him over a guy who they traded up into the lottery to get 2 years ago. Really fun player. I think maybe there was a little bit of wish casting with that pick, but disappointed that he hasn't been in the lineup. And like you said, I mean, we had that game against Indiana where Edwards went out early, only played 3 minutes. If we want to use that as a roadmap, I think you're right in that we just saw really high minutes for the other 4 starters, 39 for Randall, 35 McDaniels, 34 Gobert, 38 DiVincenzo, and then more Mike Conley, a little more Jalen Clark, and like you said, 19 minutes for Bones Highland. I think they have to get Terrence Shannon a little bit more involved.
I think so too. I worry he's going to run just really hot and cold for fantasy. Like if you pick him up, he'll get hot. Like in the first game of the season, he played really well, and then in the next 2 games, he hasn't put up numbers at all. So I'm a little worried. Like you pick him up, he's going to play 18 minutes, and he'll play 22, and it's just you're not going to get as much out of him as you hope.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the waiver wire, which at least in most leagues I play in, runs Sunday night. That was the case in our RotoWire Stake League. You and I looking good in that league through 5 days. We'll see how that goes. I do want to talk about our good pal Kirian's auction strategy, by the way, at some point, just to get your take on how he built his team. So we'll tease that for now. But as usual, I feel like I came up almost intentionally short on a lot of the big names. I'm not someone who loves to blow 20, 30, 40, in some cases even more % of my budget just based on like the first 2 games of the season. Like this is a league, the Stake League, where we have $100 budget for the year. Ryan Kalkbrenner went for $57. That's absurd. I put in a keep him honest bid. I did the same for Cedric Coward, and I thought $12. I'm like, maybe that's reasonable. Not even close. He goes for 29.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, my second rotation is not great in that league, and I was like, I don't know, $8 for Kalkbrenner. Maybe he went for like 52. So I don't know. I think some of this too is like, again, you and I, like you mentioned, we're doing well in that league right now. I haven't looked at everybody's roster, but I imagine there are a lot of people who like are already hurting on injuries, and they're like, I have to get somebody
Yeah.
because this is not like you might have 3 guys in your roster who you just have to drop, and then 2 other guys that are hurt, and all of a sudden you're like, well, Cedric Howard plays 4 times,
Yeah.
or Kalkbrenner is like clearly going to play 20 to 22 minutes a game. Like I need to just pick him up.
Yeah, I guess it's we're half joking about doing well in that league because it's so early and the
Yes.
standings changed. You're swinging. This is a roto category league. You're swinging like 15 points depending on how many guys you have going in a given night. Like I have a bunch of Clippers in that league. They have a 2-game week coming up. I'm going to fall back. But I still don't like. I think if you're paying attention, you could kind of already tell like, all right, which categories are going to be an issue for me. And I guess if you're someone like our pal K Train Kreitz, who paid $57 for Kalkbrenner, if you look at your team and you say, all right, rebounds and blocks and maybe field goal percentage, that's going to be a problem. I could address it immediately. I guess I understand it. But there are going to be so many injuries. You're going to have a key player who misses a month or 2 at some point. Like I still want to have that hammer in terms of fab dollars in my back pocket for when I really need it later in the season. And, so much of this is still rotations are going to change. How consistent are some of these guys going to be? The first 2 games of Keyshawn George versus the 3rd game to paint a little bit different picture as far as what you might have been willing to pay for him. But Kalkbrenner and Coward were the big 2. I did really want Coward. I know I got him in our Dynasty League for cheap. I really, really like him a lot. I don't know if the shooting is going to be sustainable. Probably not. But, a guy who I think Memphis every year kind of finds either a mid-first or second-round pick who turns into something, and it kind of looks like they're going to do that once again with him. In terms of other big bids in that league, this is a 15-teamer, by the way, so maybe a little bit deeper than a lot of the leagues that you play in. Isaiah Stewart, AJ Mitchell, Sam Merrill, Ryan Rollins. Those were the guys who went for consistently more than $0 or $1 bids.
Yeah, I threw in a couple bids on those guys, but also I was not going to have an issue starting a full roster this week. And to me, none of those guys are like, I have to get them. So I wasn't super aggressive. But to your Coward point, yeah, I mean, shooting 70% from the field and, playing 20-ish minutes a game is like my main concern. But at the same time, I think the steals are real. I mean, he's 1.7 steals in 22.7 minutes per game. The deflection numbers back that up. We know he's a 3-and-D guy, and we know Memphis is thin on the wing. Like, there's a million reasons to like Coward, and they play 4 times this week. So, like, this is the week to add him and then figure it out later.
Yeah, again, I mean, he went 5 for 5 from the field in his debut, 6 of 6 from 3 the other night. Like that is going to regress, but also a guy that they traded into the lottery to get. And I think, the plan is to, kind of have him be part of this amalgamation that replaces Desmond Bane. Like, he's somewhat of a developmental player in some ways because of his weird path, through college basketball, started at a lower division. But this is a guy that if he did not get hurt last season, I think we would have been talking about in a completely different light. So I'm on board with him. Let's hit a couple questions from the chat here. P Dub says, good afternoon, guys. Is it too early to add Tre Johnson in a 10-team 9-cat league?
In a 10-teamer? I mean, you might be pushing it, but I think he's looked really good.
Really
good.
Good.
Through 3 games, averaging 16, 4, and 2. Shooting percentage is like pretty sustainable. And they're featuring him to some extent. So, I think the question you have to ask about Washington is what happens when Bilal Coulibaly comes back.
Yeah.
And I don't think Tre Johnson is really going to take a hit, and I don't think Keyshawn George is going to take a hit. I think this ends up being more of like this is a Kispert, Cam Whitmore, Justin Champagnie, Will Riley, sort of like those guys see fewer minutes situation. So I think you could add him, Tre Johnson. Yeah.
I think you'll have to ride some ups and downs with the Wizards in general because they are the Wizards and Tre Johnson is a rookie. I mean, this was about as encouraging, I think, as that first week could have gone. I also think the Wizards are going to change that roster at some point, Middleton, McCollum, guys like that. So, in a 10-teamer, it's definitely more borderline, but I think at some point they're either going to shut down or trade those guys. And, you're probably looking at more opportunity later in the season. So I don't have a problem grabbing him right now. I mean, the whole book on Tre Johnson is like, this guy will shoot. If he has the ball, he's going to shoot it. And that has been the case so far this season. All right. Got a question here from Wemby 13. All right, Victor, welcome to the pod. I'm not going to go through this whole list of players here, but essentially the question is, would you drop Tari Eason for Kyle Filipowski, or would you kind of just use that as a streaming spot?
Eason, I would like to see. They play tonight, don't they? Yeah, against
Yeah.
the Nets.
Showdown.
That's a
Yeah.
booming game for Eason. Career high incoming. I would kind of like to see what happens a little bit with Eason before I drop him. I still think that Eason and Filipowski, if they got the same amount of minutes, I think it'd be pretty even. If not, Eason would be better.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, Filipowski's been good too. Uh, Both rotations are kind of in flux. I don't think I have like a strong
Yeah.
opinion on that.
I am a Tari Eason guy, so
Right.
that colors my opinion a little bit. Really for the Rockets overall, it's been kind of a rough start. They've only played twice so far, so that's a part of it. Eason, 3 points, 5 rebounds, 1 block, 4 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. He's averaging about 26 minutes through those first 2 games. I would just say it's too early to tell. But I'm pretty intrigued by the defensive potential, the rebounding that we saw last year. Filipowski to me, I had him on a couple of teams at the end of last year, and you'll have the spike games. It was really, I feel like on balance, it was mostly just points, threes, rebounds. Like there's a chance to me
Yeah.
that Eason ends up being a little bit more well-rounded. So I would lean Eason, and maybe even more so lean just make that a streaming spot until further notice. All right, good question here from Lewis, because I wanted to talk Reed Sheppard, Alex. Hey guys, is now the time to buy Reed Sheppard? What type of player would you offer to get him in a 10-team keeper league? 9-cat.
I think it's a relatively good time to buy. I mean, I will say, yeah, obviously you're not going to be super encouraged by his performances lately. He's averaging basically 9 points, 2.5 assists, 2 steals in
Yep.
24 minutes through 2 games. One of those was against OKC, which is probably good to point out. And, they were targeting him, honestly, on defense. And that's something he's going to have to figure out. What type of player would I offer to get him in a 10-team keeper league?
Keeper's tough because there's still going to be some Sheppard optimists out there. It's only been 2 games.
Yeah, I think in a keeper league, you probably don't want to give up anybody. Like, I think if you project Reed out, I don't know if he'll ever. Maybe he makes an all-star game as like a top tier outcome. You would figure he would have shown more at this point. I really wouldn't be giving up anybody that I feel like is going to be, a steady rotation
Yeah.
player for the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, Sheppard is tough because I think he's in a uniquely bad situation with his head coach, who does not tolerate nonsense like turning the ball over, as Sheppard has done through these first 2 games, and is going to have a shorter leash. And most coaches would have wanted to see what they had in Reed Sheppard last year, right? And Udoka is just like, yeah, sorry, I don't do that. So that worries me a little bit. But we still saw 3 steals in the Detroit game the other night. He's taken 11 shots in both games. Like the aggressiveness has been there. Should start shooting it better. I mean, there's going to be a ton of volume from 3. I'm still interested. I thought Reed Sheppard went for a little too high in our auction league, but at the same time, I think if that price had been a little more affordable, I would have been interested. Hooks and Hoops says, I have Anthony Davis and Sabonis. What's your outlook on them for the year? I'm a little nervous with both of them being on bad teams. Should I sell high eventually?
Yeah,
I would.
Sabonis is coming with the coming off the hamstring injury, and he hasn't taken a lot of shots the past 2 games. I mean, he took 9 shots in his first game, which he played 37 minutes off the hamstring injury. I don't think they recommend
Right
that.
away.
And then he took 8 shots, and the assists haven't really been there. I'm lower on Sabonis than I think he's produced in years past, and the same goes for AD. I was only drafting AD if he fell to me on the turn, in category leagues. I would say, like, yeah, go ahead and sell high on both
Mm.
eventually, but I don't know exactly what you'd be getting in return.
Yeah, I think when we say eventually, we're talking a couple months from now, right? I mean, it's and with Davis specifically, it's not just the idea that maybe the Mavs aren't going to be that serious of a contender, but it's also the injury history. Like I would always kind of be on watch with Anthony Davis if I do take him, and maybe around if he's still healthy in January, February, you start floating those offers. And Davis has been good numbers wise so far, so somebody will be interested. But yeah, the combination of the health and the potential shutdown, I don't know if Dallas is going to be that bad. Sacramento, we'll see. They've been competitive. They've been kind of fun so far for fantasy between Sabonis, Levine. I loved your Schroeder acquisition, by the way, in the
Oh,
stake
yeah.
league. Just a theft, an absolute theft at the end of the auction.
Yeah, I was firing them off at the end of the auction. Schroeder, Davion Mitchell was a
I know.
$1 at the very end.
Ugh,
Yeah.
I know. And there I am with like Taylor Hendricks, who I'm actually intrigued by
Well,
what we get from him.
and I was worried. I think you threw out Colin Sexton maybe early in the auction. I can't
Yep.
remember if that was you or not. And I paid 6 for him. And this is like 15 picks into the draft or something. I was worried I overpaid for him, and now I'm like, I don't know if I did. I don't think I
I
did.
know. That was really dumb of me. I nominated him thinking I could get him for like $4. And then it just I had already made like a bad buy on Ty Jerome, and I was like, all right, I can't splurge the $6 on Colin Sexton.
Right.
But yeah, I love your team. Love your team in that league. Once again, you've built a really, really thorough, like you have tough starts at decisions. My team, my starting lineup is really good. I have a very defined starting lineup. There's Gershon Yabusele, by the way, is already off the squad. It was pretty clear who's going to be in there.
Well, you're in first.
I
So,
am.
you know,
I am. I've had a lot of
we'll
games
see.
played so far.
That's
So
okay.
we'll see how that.
You're already counting. You're like, oh, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I also did what I said I wouldn't do and took Kawhi because it was like, what was it, $12? I think I got him
Probably
for
super cheap.
that. Yeah, so we're rolling out Cat, Curry, Kawhi, Mitchell. And my theory with that is, in years past, I've kind of gone heavy on like two big namers and then kind of filled it in from there. Like as far as like steals go, for instance, like I don't really have like an obvious, this guy's going to get you 1.5 steals every night type of guy, but I have like a whole team of guys who are playing 28 to 37 minutes every night, and you're just going to accumulate those stats by virtue of being out there, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. It was a tough auction.
It
I mean,
was.
we haven't talked about it on the podcast, but it's
It
tough
was.
when you got a room full of 15 people who are taking it very seriously, who read all this stuff,
Yep.
who like, and you go in thinking, oh, I might get a deal on this guy. Nope. No
Nope.
chance. You end
Nope.
up getting deals on guys like Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle who you don't even like really want, which is kind of what I end up doing a lot of the time.
Those were both massive steals, by the way. Ingram, especially, I thought was one of the buys of the auction. All right, we'll get to a couple more questions in a moment. We'll talk some rookies, but first we have a message from our friends over at Sling TV. Tired of paying for live TV you don't watch? With Sling, you could get all the live sports, news, and entertainment you want, only when you want it. Get your hands on a Sling day, week, or weekend pass starting at just $4.99. Get over 30 of your favorite channels for the best price. Stop overpaying for full-time live TV plans. Sling has a pass for any occasion. Big game tonight? Grab a day pass for just $4.99. Want a full week of live TV for one low price? Get a 7-day, week-long pass. And for all those weekend watchers out there, you can enjoy live sports, news, and entertainment from Friday morning to Sunday night with a weekend pass. Only Sling lets you watch when you want, so you only pay for what you watch. Get live TV for the day, week, or weekend, your choice, all for a great price. Watch live TV on your terms, starting at just $4.99. Sling lets you do that. Visit sling.com/deals today and tell them RotoWire sent you. We're also brought to you by Chalkboard again this week. Cash in on your NBA picks this season with Chalkboard. Just choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players receive a free pick and a 100% deposit match. You can see why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines. Get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, available now in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today. Use our promo code ROTONBA, ROTONBA. You'll get a free pick and a 100% deposit match. Again, that code ROTONBA. Back to the chat here, Alex. We have a Dylan Harper adjacent question. Brian says, hey, my dudes. What's up, Brian? For my 10-team 9-cat head-to-head league, should I drop Podziemski for either Quentin Grimes or D'Angelo Russell or Dylan Harper, perhaps?
This is funny because everyone was panic dropping D'Lo, and I don't blame them. To be clear, I do not blame anybody who panic dropped D'Lo because it wasn't looking good. He finally broke out, so to speak. Pods is tough. I'm relatively high on Pods. He was someone after pick 100. I was like, you got to grab him because Curry, Draymond, or Jimmy Butler, like they're going to get hurt, and then it's Podziemski time. But honestly, like Kuminga's been playing pretty well, and Moses Moody's been playing really well, and Podziemski kind of is like looking like how he looked at the start of last year, which is just like he's kind of running out there doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, not really being like a great fantasy player. I don't know. I mean, are you relatively I don't know if relatively high on, but like, how do you feel about Grimes and D'Lo kind of going forward?
It's interesting because I think you can group Grimes and Harper together in that both have looked really good. Numbers have been overall like fairly similar through this first 3/4 of a week. But with the Sixers, you at some point have Paul George coming back. We think it won't be tonight against the Magic, but it'll be at some point. So like there's that kind of hovering over it. And then with San Antonio, you of course have Fox returning to this team. So it's hard for me to look at what they've done so far and just say, yep, you can bank on that going forward. It's really tough. I think I would still rather have either of those guys than Podziemski. You know,
Yeah.
my hope is that when the time comes that Butler misses a month or Curry misses a month, you know, you can go add Podziemski. I know you kind of want to hold him for that possibility. I think Grimes and Harper are just really good players that are both going to find their way onto the court, and especially the Sixers because yeah, Paul George is going to come back. What is he going to look like? Is Joel Embiid ever going to look like anything close to the player that he was? That's a whole separate topic right now. Like I think this season, unfortunately, could play out kind of like last year, where you can't depend on Embiid, you can't depend on George, and the Sixers do have to lean on that depth. And Harper's been so good, and you have incredible draft pedigree there. Like he's going to be a part of this rotation, so I would take a chance on either of those guys if they're out there. The Sixers, by the way, they've messed up all the big things and they've hit on all the small things. Like Jared McCain, VJ Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes, even bringing in Kelly Oubre. Like they've hit on just enough things that I'm like, yeah, I think they've actually done a really good job building out this roster. It's just they've whiffed on the Embiid extension and bringing in PG.
That Embiid extension that's gonna go down as one of the worst ones. And I like it's one of those things where like I'm watching the 76ers games and I tune in the fourth quarter. I'm like, where is Embiid? He's not even out there in fourth quarters. Like they're closing. It's not like they're playing him 8 minutes in the first half and then like saving him for the fourth. They play him early and then don't play him in the fourth.
Because he can't be out there. Like opening night was a disaster. Like they were awful with Embiid on the court. Awful.
Yeah, they're playing Drummond instead of him. So anyway, I agree with you on like Harper looks amazing. So like go grab Harper, Grimes, even D'Lo. I understand.
Yeah.
Dropping Podziemski for those.
How do we explain the minutes for D'Lo those first two games? Like what was that?
I mean, at least one of those wasn't the first one a blowout. I mean, yeah, Spurs blew them out, and then Washington. I don't know. I didn't see much of that game. It's possible he was just playing terrible defense and they were getting exposed. I don't know. And then against Toronto, he plays amazing. I don't Jason Kidd, legendary coach in terms of messing with his rotation, saying strange things at press conferences, saying the offense is where they need it to be.
Backwards fitted hat. Yep.
They don't have a solution at point guard. Yeah. So to me, he's kind of I don't know, you can't call him a buy low anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I think the minutes will be better than they've been so far. We were talking about some of the the great steals of the RotoWire auction. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I reluctantly grabbed late because I figured Alex he would come out and he would take 15 and 18 shots over the first two games of the season. Nice little 2 for 15 to start the season in the opener. They get blown out by Toronto. A little bit better these last two games. 8 for 18 from the field, 6 for 10. Against OKC the other night. I do like Alexander Walker because I think they need him defensively. Like, in the backcourt, it's like, what can we do to compensate for Trae Young? We have Daniels, we have Alexander Walker. Hasn't done a ton outside of scoring so far. I mean, if you would have told me he went the entire season not taking 18 shots in a game, I would have believed you. So I guess it's in some ways encouraging that he's firing away. I do wonder what the field goal percentage is going to be. Jalen Johnson, Porzingis obviously have been banged up, so that's a part of it. But is he somebody that, if he's sitting out there in a 10-team league, you would at least throw in a bench spot?
I would think about it. I think the main thing is that Atlanta has been dealing with injuries. Like Porzingis only played in the opener. Risacher only played in the opener. Jalen Johnson missed their most recent game on Saturday. So Alexander Walker has stepped up, which is interesting. I think it's actually more interesting on how little Dyson Daniels has been doing. Not to like totally.
Well, I wanted to ask about that because you were on this.
I was telling people not to draft him that high, and some of it, like, look, he got in foul trouble the first game, had 5 fouls, and they got blown out by Toronto. So, like, I don't know how much you want to look into that, but even if you want to go per 36, even he is taking 7.5 shots per game, only 3.1 assists. His steals are down by 1. I think the steals will come up to some extent, but I just don't. He did a lot of his damage last year when guys were hurt, and now they have more help on offense. But it's again strange to me that the past 2 games, guys have been out. He hasn't done anything.
Speaking of Dyson Daniels, Don says, got offered Dyson Daniels for VJ Edgecombe in a 9-cat 12-teamer.
I'm not trading Edgecombe for almost anybody that is like, I don't know. It depends. Like Daniels, because his steals production should still be there. I think like worst case scenario, he still finishes like top 75.
Yeah.
But would you trade VJ Edgecombe for like a player who is in that range? I don't think I would. I really think Edgecombe is good.
On the other side of things, Daniel asked, is Bub Carrington just bad?
I like Bub. I think the issue, he was not getting at the end of the preseason there, he wasn't looking great. And he was already, fans were like, oh, are we doing this Bub thing? Because Tre Johnson looks amazing. So I don't think he's bad, but I just think he's not as good defensively as his numbers would say. And, he's not a great 3-point shooter.
No,
he's not a volume 3-point shooter. So he's like a very specific type of player that often kinds of gets phased out in the NBA, unfortunately. But again, the issue is partially like there are guys on this roster who are better than him on both sides of the ball. Like Tre Johnson might be better than him already on both sides of the ball. Keyshawn George might be better than him already on both sides of the ball. Cam Whitmore is better than him offensively.
Well, that's the thing with a team like Washington is you're cycling through guys all the time, right? I wouldn't even say riding the hot hand, but you're just trying to figure out like who's going to be on this roster 2 years from now. And when you're bringing in all these young pieces and trying to get a look at guys, then you still have McCollum and Middleton for some reason. It's pretty easy for guys like this to get lost in the shuffle. Like we've seen this with Utah, we've seen it with Charlotte, we've seen it with the Nets over the years, where guys will have their kind of one season where the injuries and the way the roster is built kind of works out, where it's like, hey, you're playing 30 minutes every night now because we need you to. But when you have other options, especially bringing in Tre Johnson and like you said, George playing well, Whitmore in there. Was Carrington a lottery pick or was he just outside the lottery?
14.
Yeah, 14. So it's like there is a level of investment there, but being the 14th pick in that draft specifically is a little bit different. So there's not this like, hey, we have this internal obligation to make this guy a focal point. The steals are nice. You'll get the assists every now and then. The percentages aren't going to be great. I wouldn't pay too much attention to him right now. All right, what else we got going in the chat here? A lot of good questions stacking up here. Let's see. Manila's Most Wanted says, would you trade Paolo Banchero for Jalen Brunson? 12-team category league.
Probably. I think I would.
Okay.
I mean, Banchero has not started very well, and he's going to play better. He took a terrible shot in the Atlanta game to close that one out. I think it was the Atlanta game. Like there was like 7 seconds left. He took some crazy fadeaway 3.
Yeah.
But he only has 3 total assists and 9 total turnovers through 3 games. And he's going to be better, but this offense is like, it's more diversified now.
Yeah.
And I liked him in like, I was totally fine taking him in roto leagues. But when you watch the Magic, obviously it's a lot of Franz Wagner too. Wagner looks awesome. And then it's more for Bane. So obviously De Silva's doing a lot too, but that's kind of a separate conversation. But I think even if you were predicting an upside situation for Banchero, it wasn't going to be a lot better than Brunson.
Yeah, that's true. And Banchero's not off to a good start as a free throw shooter. He's taken a bunch, but he's in the mid-low 70s as he's been the last couple of years. And in a category league, that's something you have to worry about. Lack of assists, definitely a problem. This is a tough one because I think, and I believe you brought this up either last week or the week before. Like making this trade feels kind of wrong because you're like, oh, Banchero, he's about to really break out. He could be recognized as a top 10 guy in the NBA, which is true. There is, especially in category leagues, really only in category leagues, there is still a kind of a difference between the real life value and the fantasy value for him.
100%. And he is a very specific type of player, and that's not always going to, like a lot of teams, this is getting into the weeds, but he posts up a lot.
Yeah.
And then teams double, and then he kicks to a guy, and then that guy passes to another guy. So the Banchero doesn't get the assist.
Yeah.
And they just don't need him to jack up shots and force up looks anymore. So the scoring is not always going to be there. I would trade him for Brunson. I would.
Yeah. All right, we got a good rookie question that we want to hit in just a moment, but we are also brought to you by Dabble this week. Dabble is not just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this basketball season. Starting with Dabble, super easy. New users get $25 free right at sign up, no deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it if you're listening to this in podcast form. Just scroll down. You'll see the link there for Dabble. Go download the app. Get that $25 free as you sign up. All right, we had a question on the rookie class, Alex, and this is it's very refreshing coming off of last year when you're just like, can I find 4 rookies I'm excited about? Like, there are so many guys I want to hit here. But Wemby weighs in and he says, this rookie class, there's too much talent. If you need to stash a rookie, who would you stash right now in a 12-teamer?
Stash a rookie.
Yeah. And
so
you can take this wherever you want. If you want to talk, Edgecombe or Harper or whatever.
I mean, Bailey might be a stash. I picked him up. I'm in a 12-team Roto League, the industry pickup league. I picked him up off a waiver. Somebody dropped him.
Yep.
He's dealing with dual knee tendonitis and was ill. Was sick before one of the games. So his minutes have been really low, and he just was kind of passive. So I'm grabbing him if someone dropped him in a 12-teamer, and I'm going to wait at least a week, probably 2 weeks, to see what his like quote unquote true role is.
Yeah, I like that one. I think he's somebody. Eventually, the minutes are going to be there. It might not be till later in the season. Utah, it was going to be Utah, so I think that's an obvious one. Derek Queen comes to mind. Played 35 minutes the other night. I know you had some issues with his T-shirt under the jersey, which I understand. It was big, but I'm actually a fan of that look. I think if there's a difference between like stash and who could you pick up to make an impact right now. Eason Newell is somebody I would maybe keep an eye on. Probably is going to need multiple injuries. Obviously, Atlanta's already had those this season, but depends how much you trust Porzingis, how much you trust Jalen Johnson to stay healthy. I think he's somebody that in the event either of those guys were to go down, could make an impact later.
Yep. And I mean, again, even like someone like Walter Clayton has looked pretty good. Someone like Jeremiah Fears, when you watch him, you're like, whoa, this guy, legit NBA offensive player. Really, the stats have not like, he only has, 1.5 assists a game, but just like in terms of being a scorer, Fears has looked awesome. And then someone who's hurt right now, but Colin Murray Boyles, I don't really know what his stat line is going to end up being when he plays, because he's almost like a Draymond type sometimes, where it's like he might just get 6, 7, and 5 with 2 steals and a block, and you're like, what is this? But he's someone I would be looking at if you're in like a 16 or 18 team league and you got some room on your bench or something.
I would say in probably more so a keeper format, but Carter Bryant is somebody like long term. I would take a look at. Hasn't played many minutes yet, but the flashes have been pretty impressive and should be a really good defender.
I mean, I grabbed Yakashunis in our keeper league. I was like, well, I'll take a chance on this. Yeah.
Very simple question. Oh, this one. Very simple question here for Brian. What the heck is up with Isaiah Jackson? LOL.
Unfortunately, I think he might be like kind of bad.
Yeah.
I mean, watching him play in the preseason, I was like, oh boy. There's a lot of like, he doesn't know where the ball is. He's kind of looking around. Like his help rotation is not good. And I think, I think in fantasy, maybe we are sort of guilty sometimes of like wish casting, like, oh, this guy's per 36 numbers are great. And like this and that. And we know if he gets the minutes, he had never gotten the minutes before, and he had opportunities, and we knew Carlisle like is not a big fan of Isaiah Jackson, but their center rotation was so bad. What are they going to do? And I guess the answer is it's just going to be bad, and they're going to try out Bradley, and they're going to try out Wiseman, and they're going to try out Huff, and they're going to play Toppin at center, and I think it's just going to be bad all season.
All right, Daniel says, can I get an amen? AKA, who would be a few players or what general range if you're trying to float a buy low offer on Amen Thompson 2 games into the season?
Who would be a few players to float a buy low?
Well, first of all, if you're holding Amen Thompson, which I don't think I have him anywhere, he went for a crazy inflated price in our auction. You knew that was going to be the case. Like he was somebody I was like, I'm setting this out. I'm not paying this price. Are you looking to get off of him? Like, has it been that alarming through 2 games?
No, I wouldn't be trying to
Yeah, I
trade
don't
him,
think so
but
either.
I mean, you see some of the trades that, Yahoo publicly releases their trades in public leagues. Like you can see what people are trading, and people are out here dealing. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, I guess that's a good question because you would, in theory, be trading someone who's playing well, or like unsustainably well. Obviously, no one's going to take like Keyshawn George for him. I don't think anybody would do like Walker Kessler. I don't know. You probably want to trade someone who is like
I think you got to put a real offer on the table.
Jamal Murray. Would you do that if you had the Amen side? Would you be a little tempted if someone was like, "Oh, Jamal Murray for Amen"? I know you said like
Yeah.
neither of us would want to trade Amen, but would you like be like, "Oh, should I think about this?"
You're saying I'd be getting Murray?
Yeah.
I don't think I would do it. The whole point of Amen is, you're getting the crazy defensive stats. The breakout is coming. I wouldn't be willing to give up on him 2 games in. Like it would have to be an offer that I can't refuse. And I think that's how most Amen Thompson managers would handle that. I think.
Yeah, I think ideally if you have someone in your roster who's like a third-ish round player that's playing really well, I think maybe that's a guy that you could float out for Amen because I think that's kind of Amen's floor is like being a third round guy. Unfortunately, that's not what you wanted if you draft him 19th. But yeah.
Well, here's a good one. Would you trade a Sarr Thompson for Jalen Johnson, or should the injuries scare you away?
I would prefer Jalen Johnson. Yeah. I mean, obviously the injury situation is not great with Jalen Johnson. He's hurt right now. He's been hurt through a lot of his career. But Jalen Johnson also projects as a potential second round player, maybe more like third round in this environment in Atlanta. But Sarr, again, playing well, but not someone that I imagine gets close to that.
I got a question here on KPJ. Any updates? Haven't seen anything yet. Bucks play tomorrow. They're off on Monday, so maybe we get an update later today. Most likely Tuesday morning. Obviously missed the last 2 games on the road, so we'll see. It doesn't seem like anything too serious, but not a great sign that he was ruled out immediately. Thoughts on Podziemski? Already talked about him a little bit. Kel'el Ware. This is a good one. Is Kel'el Ware considered a drop candidate?
I don't know if I could do it. I don't have him in any of my actually I do have him in our keeper league, but that's kind of a different conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting the Spo treatment. Like he played 14 minutes in the opener, didn't do that well, played 23 minutes against Memphis. That was a blowout. He played really well and then got the same amount of minutes in starts. He didn't start the first game. I would hold because we kind of know this is how it is with Spoelstra and Kel'el Ware, I should say. He doesn't really like him, it seems like.
Yeah.
But the Heat are playing really well. So
Jovic and Jaquez are playing so well that they haven't really needed to go to Ware.
Well, that's part of it too. Yeah, they haven't needed Ware at all. Jaquez is playing out of his mind.
I know.
It's 16, 7 and 4. I thought he was going to be on the waiver wire in our 15-team auction league. I look, and I think it's Schuler has him.
Yeah.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was ready to throw out like a nice little offer for him.
What are your thoughts on Shaedon Sharpe? We're not pulling from the chat here. This is just a question from my mind. We got 3 games so far now for the Blazers. He's gone 5 of 20, 5 of 15, 7 of 24 from the field.
I mean, the volume is what you're hoping for. Like when you drafted Shaedon Sharpe, you're like, this is a volume shooter, and I want it.
Yeah.
And you got it. I mean, he's going to shoot better than this, I think. Nice that he's getting to the free throw line. He's hit all of his free throws. I don't like the negative 2 to 4 assist to turnover ratio, but they got Avdia controlling the offense. Drew Holiday's been controlling the offense. Holiday's look great. So I'm not panicked on Shaedon Sharpe. I think he's a buy low.
Yep. Any thoughts on Donovan Clingan so far? 8 points, 6 rebounds, 2 steals and a block, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 1 block, 9 points, 10 rebounds, steal and a block. I think that's been about what you'd expect so far. Maybe like a little bit more volume on the rebounding.
I mean, this is very close to what we had him projected for.
Yeah.
And we have for more blocks, I think is the main thing you want. Like you want him to be closer to like 2 blocks a game, which I think could certainly happen. And watching him play, he looks exactly like I thought he would look. I think he's been fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Question here for Brian. These players were dropped in my 10-teamer 9-cat head-to-head. Please rank them in terms of your pickup interest. Jabari Smith, Zachary Risacher, Tari Eason.
I think Smith is first. I'm not really a Jabari Smith guy, but he played 40 minutes in both games. And the shots, shot attempts weren't great, but I think that Udoka likes him more than Eason. And I am going to stick with that sort of mindset for now.
Yep.
I don't know. How do you feel about Eason versus Risacher? Because Risacher's only played in one game.
Yeah, he's played one game and he got hurt in the opener, missed the last two. It looked fairly good, but at 16 points in 21 minutes. I get in a 10-teamer if you want to dump him. In a 12-teamer, I don't think that would have been the case. Too early to tell on him. He did go through shoot-around today, by the way, so sounds like he should be back out there on Monday night. Thoughts on Alex Sarr? Alex, from one Alex to another. I know you were a big Sarr guy, so what do you think we've seen so far?
I think he's been pretty good. 2 blocks a game. The minutes, he's only playing 25 minutes a game.
Yep.
Which is I would say a mild concern. Now this game against Charlotte that they played yesterday was a blowout. But he's doing kind of exactly what we thought, which is he's shooting fewer threes. He's taking better shots. He's shooting 54% from the field, getting a lot of dunks. I was trying to tell people he's a pretty good passer, 4 assists a game. I think he's looked good, and I think he has room to grow.
We got a few questions about Ryan Rollins for the Milwaukee Bucks. I think a guy I don't mind adding in some deeper leagues. Obviously, his best 2 games came without Kevin Porter Jr. Ironically, he hasn't been shooting the 3 well. Milwaukee's just been chucking up a ton of threes. For the most part, they've been hitting him. Ryan Rollins, 1 of 6, 1 of 5, 1 of 5 through those first 3 games. But he has given you 8 steals in those 3 games, had 8 assists in the Cleveland game yesterday. I think, those of us in the Bucks world, I think you're wearing a Bucks hat as we speak. We knew Ryan Rollins was somebody who is a serious rotation player, but how serious is he for fantasy? How much of this is tethered directly to KPJ?
I think it's pretty heavily tied to KPJ, but there is still room for Rollins to establish himself as this guy has to play 24 minutes a game because he's very good defensively. Like you mentioned, the 3-point shooting has to improve because if he's going to take 5 a game, they got to start going in. But he's been a pretty decent 3-point shooter throughout his career. Someone who can kind of do a little bit of everything. I really like him.
Yeah.
The sort of thing that concerned me was that game against against Toronto, where Cole Anthony went nuts. Cole Anthony was bringing the Bucks back from the brink in that game. And so my worry would be, and Cole Anthony missed the Cleveland game because he had an illness and he's, I presume, questionable for the Bucks next game. But my worry is that Cole Anthony just becomes so good offensively, and that's what the Bucks need, that this starts to be too much of a minute share, and Rollins isn't that relevant.
I think we knew that would be the case going in, right? It's what if Cole Anthony is too good and it ruins the fantasy value of the rest of the Milwaukee Bucks? But no, that is looking like an early steal for them, for as far as a free depth piece goes. Another one that hits close to home for you, Alex. Should we be worried about Matas Buzelis, who fouled out in 12 minutes against Orlando?
Yeah, if a guy fouls out, it's not great that he fouled out in 12 minutes against Orlando, but he had 21 and 6 in the first game with 3 blocks against Detroit. Obviously a good defensive team, so I'm not worried at all.
No, I'm not either. He is somebody that I think 20 games in, I might look back and say, all right, I wish I had a little bit of exposure to Buzelis because it's just so thin right now in Chicago. I know they'll get Kobe White back and that helps, but it's maybe the thinnest, truly the thinnest, top 7 in the NBA outside of maybe Brooklyn. It's even the Jazz and teams like that at least have some intriguing guys. It just falls off a cliff for Chicago.
It is. The bench is not great, although I've loved Tre Jones. Not that he's coming off the bench right now. When they get Kobe White back, that's going to be big. That's going to help them a ton.
All right, we'll just go rapid fire through a few more topics here. The Phoenix Suns have been an interesting team so far. They beat Sacramento. They rally back from this disastrous first quarter when it looked like they were going to score 80 points. They win that game. get blown out by the Clippers, tough spot with the Clippers coming off of their own blowout, and then get just hammered by the Nuggets on Saturday. Mark Williams did not play in the Saturday game. Second night of a back-to-back. Played 24 minutes off the bench, then 14 minutes off the bench in these first two games. Did have 4 fouls in the second one. They're going with Iguodaro. They're not really playing Malawach. What's going on here?
I think Phoenix is probably, they must be very aware of the injury issues, the knee issues that caused Mark Williams' trade to be rescinded. Like, I'm sure they got him in there, with their medical staff, and they were like, whoa, we can't play this guy in the preseason. We got to limit him. So he's kind of a wait and see for me, but I think it's going to kind of be like this all year, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, no Malawach. He's pretty raw still. And I like Iguodaro. He kind of doesn't, he's like he's just a guy who he's better in real life than in fantasy. Like, you watch Iguodaro play, he makes no mistakes. He's a good passer. He hustles. He's a great athlete, but he's not like putting up stats.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, like, if you follow college basketball, he played at Marquette, and I'm like, oh, he's starting for an NBA team. That is very surprising to me. Like, good, solid college player, but like, it was like, all right, second rounder, maybe he can catch on. This was not the plan necessarily for him. So it says a lot, I guess, that, he's earned that spot. But there was certainly a time where Oso Iguodaro, NBA starter, did not seem like a real possibility, which maybe just says more about where the Suns are right now. All right, what else we got here? I was just looking at some of the team stats overall. The Orlando Magic are still taking under 33s a game. They're still shooting horribly from three. That was something that jumped out to me.
Yeah, it's a problem. After some of these games, I go to the teams, usually the losing teams, subreddit, and I'm like, what are people saying about, like, what are the diehards saying? And people are pretty mad about, like, this team has no offensive game plan. They just go, they just roll the ball out, and they're just.
That's what it's looked like. It looks like a team that's like, we're supposed to be good. Why are we not winning?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Bane can only hit so many threes by himself. And the other guys that you're bringing off the bench, that you're sort of trusting to give you any sort of offensive jolt, it's like they're not 3-point shooters. Tyus Jones is not a 3-point shooter. Anthony Black is really inconsistent. De Silva isn't a great shooter yet. Please don't play Jet Howard. Like, it's kind of a tough watch sometimes. And I think they're really talented. It's just
Bottom 5 in terms of 3-point attempts so far: Lakers, Bulls, Raptors, Magic, Mavericks. Dallas, to me, that was pretty predictable. 27 threes a game.
I'm surprised Detroit's not on that list.
They're 22nd.
That Detroit-Houston game was like, that looked like it was something out of the 80s. Like, when people talk about back in the day, Duran was getting ejected for elbowing Sarr Thompson. People are getting in fights the whole game. Beef Stew's out there. Everyone's throwing elbows. It was all elbows the entire game. It was a strange modern game.
I saw a question in the chat about Bradley Beal. Do you have any Bradley Beal thoughts? If you're holding him, do not start him this week in a weekly league. Only 2 games on the schedule. Sat out yesterday with a back injury. Did absolutely nothing in the first 2 games.
I mean, it seems like they're going to keep limiting his minutes, as far as we know. And do they need him? I think he's just kind of like I don't want to say auxiliary. He's like additive for them. It's like, we don't really need him, but if he's going to be around and be healthy, like, we'll play him.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I just thought he'd be doing a little bit more, but he just, like, I've watched every Clippers game so far because I'm just way too over leveraging Kawhi. And it's if you did not know he was Brad Beal, you would just think he's like a replacement level just dude. Like, he's just not doing anything. This is a good one as far as, which rookie guard would you rather roster, Yegor Demin or Jeremiah Fears?
I think, well, this season is tough, right? Because
we'll say for
I don't know. Yeah, if we're keeping it this year, I think I would actually rather have Demin because he's going to get the opportunity. Like, the plantar fasciitis thing does worry me. He's going to sit out today against the Rockets because the foot. So my concern is, like, it's going to be like this all year. We've seen guys in the past deal with this. Wendell Carter Jr., for example, had plantar fasciitis, and he would just, like, play 2 games, miss 1 game, play 3 games, miss 2 games. So that's what worries me. But I think long term, I would much rather have Fears. I think he's looked amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Carrington or Ryan Rollins for this week? I would go Rollins there. Both have 3 games.
Definitely.
All right. Daniel says, how much real life / fantasy impact should we chalk up with this Billups drama? Good question. Because who's taking over for the Blazers? None other than Tiago Splitter.
I know, and all the buzz, the Tiago Splitter buzz is out of control. Everyone's like, this is the greatest. Everyone's liked what he said. I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't know how much to look into it. It's really tough to say until we find out actual details of what happened.
I guess is an interim coach more likely to be aggressive, try to win more games longer term? Does this quell any shutdown concerns? I don't know. Maybe that comes down from on high either way.
I think some of it too is nobody thought Billups was a good coach.
Yeah, right.
Before, he had a good run at the end of last season with the defensive stuff that sort of was going to carry over into this year.
Yep.
But if you had asked anybody a year or two before that, is Billups, you never heard anybody talk about Billups. And I think you never heard anybody talk about him even negatively because he was a former player and everybody liked him.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not looking into it too much for fantasy, honestly.
Okay, I want to end on this real quickly, Alex. Our good pal Kirian Sprecher, you can hear weekly on this show, put together a very interesting build in our 15-team auction league. Now, last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Kirian waited until 50 players were off the board, saved his entire budget, and then kind of went bargain hunting. Did not work out well. Not trying to air out Kirian. I appreciate the unique build. This year, went the complete opposite approach. And this is why I love an auction, because you could never do this in a standard draft. Paid up for Wembanyama, paid up for Nikola Jokic. Paid what? I think it was a combined 140, 150 out of a $200 budget for those two guys, and just said, give me Wemby, give me Jokic. I'll fill out the rest of the roster. He filled it out with Knipple, Edgecombe, Harper, Draymond, Risacher, Kuminga, Grayson Allen, Obi Toppin, Tre Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, Ayo Dosunmu, Jaden Ivey. It was a very busy day. We were doing multiple drafts. I haven't really talked to you about that auction. What did you make of this strategy? I just think it's an interesting concept to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to him a little bit about it, and I think he shares the same sentiments as we do, which is, or in terms of constructing a balanced build, which is you can be too balanced and it's impossible to play all your players that are good. Yeah. And so I think his idea was just I'll get the two best players, and I can just waiver wire and stream and do dollar days guys into a competent team. And I think he built a pretty good team. He's strangely also very heavy into rookies. He's got Knipple, Edgecombe, Harper, Tre Johnson, but that's all looked great. I mean, those are the guys you wanted.
Yep.
So, and the getting Kuminga, and he's looked good. So, the strategy is good. It just the issue, as always, is what if Wembanyama gets hurt? What if Jokic gets hurt? But other than that, I mean, this is about the best way to build a high floor team, assuming those guys stay healthy. That's the issue. But yeah,
I think he did an incredible job building out the rest of this roster. Literally everyone on the roster is averaging double-digit scoring right now. Every single one of those rookies looks like a great pick. The Edgecombe breakout has certainly helped a ton. Kuminga playing well has helped a ton. I still don't think this is something I would ever do because of the reliance on those two guys. And Jokic specifically, you don't worry about him. You never miss his time. That's, one of the reasons that you could justify this. But yeah, if Wembanyama misses a month, man, then it's tough. So is this something you would ever do?
I would, honestly, I would think about it, because I will say in this particular auction draft, like I mentioned at the top, everybody kind of knows who the guys are. So you're not going to be I'm going to get a great deal on Josh Giddey. Not going to happen.
Right.
I'm going to get a great deal on, some break. I'm going to get a great deal on a Sarr Thompson. You won't. You're going to pay a real price for these guys.
Yeah.
So, and because a lot of people want to build balanced, because in theory, it's sort of the best way to build. You save yourself from one guy being too leveraged on one guy. So I think if you go into this particular room and think I'm going to build balance, so is everybody else. And then those guys, those 4th to 6th round guys, or even later, their prices get really inflated. Mm-hmm. And I actually think as a result, some of the deals are on the very top end guys, and then some of the dollar days guys who don't get drafted because nobody has any money anymore. So I think actually in a room like this, it could be, I feel like I'm trending more towards that way the more I play in this league, actually.
All right, good stuff, man. We'll wrap it up here. Great questions in the chat, as always. Appreciate all those. We'll keep doing this for you every Monday throughout the NBA season. We'll have 4 episodes a week in this feed. Check us out on YouTube if you're listening as a traditional pod. If you're listening on YouTube, check us out as a podcast. Rate, like, subscribe, do all those things. That helps us out a ton. And you see that code right there on your screen, YouTube 15. Put that in over at rotowire.com, 15% off anything we offer over at RotoWire.